Good afternoon, and thank you, FaceTime, for inviting me to present on the topic of internal stakeholder engagement. It's a topic which may sound a bit dry. As far as I know, it isn't really discussed very often in this context, but it's hugely powerful, and we're having a lot of success with it. So we wanted to share some of our thoughts with you. So I say good afternoon. Actually, I see there's some friends from America that have joined us. So it'll be early in the morning for you, and in the Middle East it will be, I guess, early evening. But thank you for your time. Uh, Intention always is to maximize the effectiveness of what you do and minimize the effort required to do it. And certainly internal stakeholder engagement is one of those things for us that ticks both those boxes. So we would always hope to double your measurable objectives in terms of the quantity and quality of leads you get. As I said, hopefully we halve your stress as well, and that's borne out by what we experience. We want to make it easier for you. If you're involved in organizing an exhibition or a program of exhibitions for your organization, we want to make it better return on our ROI, and we want to make your involvement in it much more fun and much less stressful. And we just want you to feel the love so that everybody in the organization is pulling together to achieve the same objectives. I'm always aware that when people register for these webinars, there's a huge range of experience out there and knowledge. So we framework everything we do with what we call the 3 R's. So it may be that over the next 30 minutes or so we remind you of things that you've done in the past but that have stopped working, or something you saw and thought, do you know what, that was a good idea. We should have implemented that, but we never got round to it. For the more experienced people, I hope that we just reinforce those effective things that you're already doing. I'm sure most of you are doing great things, and this will reinforce that for you. And then the hope always is that we'll reveal some brand new ideas and strategies that will work for you going forward. So hopefully we'll tick at least some of those, if not all of those boxes for you today. How did we get here? This isn't some strange philosophical question. I'm not going to turn into a Scientologist or start talking about Darwinian theory all of a sudden. It's just how we, Marketingesp, got to be so interested in this topic. We've dealt with upward of 300 companies, spoken to over 5,000 individuals about maximizing return on investment and developing the skills of people to make the most of exhibitions and events. Because everything we do is interactive, we've had lots of conversations with a lot of people about exhibitions, and we go to a huge number of exhibitions where we sometimes get asked to work on the stand. So we've got some experience. And when we walk into exhibition halls, sometimes it's the weirdest thing. We see a bunch of people on the stands that seem to have absolutely no idea what they're doing there. They look fed up, they look bored, they look confused, they look miserable, and that's just not how events and exhibitions should be. Now, we work with companies to help with the skills, as I said. So you'd expect us to talk to people about being proactive and going out and engage with people to improve their listening skills and having good conversations, meaningful conversations with visitors to the stand so they can understand their requirements. And if all else fails, positive body language and a smile so that it at least looks like a welcoming place and a happy place to be. The flip side of that, of course, is that we have to talk to people about the stuff we don't think they should do. Just don't pick your nose, don't be on your phone looking bored, don't be standing on the edge of the space that you're working on, scratching your backside. None of these things look great. They're all things that you'll witness at the next exhibition that you go to. So we need to be mindful of all that. So we can talk to people about what they should do. The next step from that is to give them the skills on how to do it in a meaningful way. But where it has real impact, where it really makes a difference, is when all of those people understand why they're doing it. Once they understand why they're doing it, the what and the how becomes natural because they're bright people. A lot of the marketing departments we talk to have this dilemma. We speak to some that say, you know what, we've got real buy-in from all the other departments. It's a show we're looking forward to, and everybody's coming around wanting to volunteer to be on the stand. I'd say a big majority say we're dragging everybody kicking and screaming. The events every year, we go through the same thing. The other departments aren't really engaged. We have to drag it out of them. We have to drag new products out of the resources department. We have to get the salespeople on board, and it's really quite tough for us. And going back probably 8-10 years now, a conversation that really got me thinking was with a company that I'd done a lot of successful work for in Europe. And the marketing contact there, I won't mention any names, but she said, Paddy, we'd love to take what we've succeeded with in Europe and make it happen in the Middle East. I said, well, I'd love to work with you over there for sure. And then she said something that I've heard a few times before and a lot of times since, but it struck a chord on this particular occasion. It's a big event for us, but it's a struggle to get the sales director from the region and his sales team on board. I was like, what the hey? This is a massive, massive event. There's only two, like there's a European version and there's a Middle East version. There's one in America. But these three exhibitions are some of the biggest exhibitions in any sector anywhere in the world. The regional sales director is going to have 70,000 people from his sector, potential clients, come into an event at his front door and you can't get them on board. So I had to think for a minute. And obviously it didn't take me too long. And I said, well, look, either they're right, either he's got a real compelling reason for not wanting to be there, in which case you guys are wasting many hundreds of thousands of pounds on attending this event, or you're right, it's a fantastic marketing tool, and if that's the case, they're missing the point. So they asked me to go over there. The sales director was a very open-minded chap as it happened. He was a really good guy, and he said, look, Paddy, why don't you come over here? Talk to me, talk to the team face to face, and I'll take a view on it. But hand on heart, it's not an event that we really look forward to in a big way, which was very honest of him. So when I went over there, it was very clear from the moment I walked through the door, nice people, some of the nicest people you'd ever wish to meet, but they made it pretty clear that the event wasn't something that they were looking forward to. Rather than bash my head against the brick wall, I said to them, okay guys, let's back it up a bit. Forget about the event. Let's just talk about what you do. You're salespeople. I'm a salesperson. You're in sales. Tell me about, more broadly, the challenges you face. So if in doubt, get a flip chart out. That's what we did. About 13 of their senior salespeople in the room. And we went around and said, okay, what are the challenges you face as salespeople? And they said, well, it's a real global product. It's a global sector. People are traveling. It's really hard to get hold of people. We leave messages on phones. No one gets back to us. It's just tough to get hold of people. Because of the high value of what we do, we have a pretty long sales cycle, and that's a real challenge for us. So even if the pipeline's full, it might not come to fruition for many months and possibly years. Because we can't get in front of people, building commitment and trust is really difficult. So everything becomes quite transactional. Like everybody, they think they work in an incredibly competitive marketplace, and I guess in this instance, they probably did. In a very mature market like this one, the one they were in, and the fact that they were a company that was 80 years old, finding new business was really difficult. Everybody kind of knew everybody. Everybody knew what was going on. So finding brand new opportunities was incredibly tough for them. Getting face to face, well, that's what this is all about. That's what FaceTime promotes. That's what we talk about a lot, is looking someone in the eye, shaking them by the hand, and actually having a meaningful conversation with them. It's hard to do it in a virtual world. There was also a lack of awareness. I mentioned this was an 80-year-old company. They were known for doing certain things and for doing them very well, but their technology had moved on in the last 10 years or so in such a big way that they'd almost forgotten to tell people. So people knew them for doing something, and they couldn't get the message out there that they had all this fantastic new technology and new products that could make a real difference to the sector. People had pigeonholed them. So you can probably guess what we did next. I went around and said, well, okay, let's look at that. Let's take them one by one. Hard to reach prospects and clients. In a few months' time, 70,000 people are going to walk through the door of a venue only about 40 miles from here. So isn't that the best opportunity you've ever had to invite those people to come and say hello to you? The best opportunity to organise, to make meetings, to go and say hello to some people? Long sales cycle. Well, there's figures, and FaceTime have got them, to prove that actually leads and opportunities taken at exhibitions and events have a much shorter sales cycle because there's that initial trust. And then we talked about building commitment and trust, which is much easier to do when you're face to face with somebody. So certainly we looked at that. And then of course there was that light bulb moment in the room, and these weren't stupid people, these were clever people. You have to have a master's degree pretty much just to walk through the door there as an engineer. So they tick the others off themselves. It's competitive, but we're out there and we're showing people how strong we are. if there is any new business, if anything new is in the pipeline, in people's plans over the next few years, if there's a new company, if there are new people within organizations, what better place to meet them than at this particular event? And we said, you're getting face to face. We're going to shake people by the hand. We've got coffee on the stand. We'll have a coffee with them. We'll speak to them. It's just the most amazing opportunity. And what a great place to show people some of this new technology, some of our new products that are making a real difference in the sector. They answered the questions themselves. Now, through all of this, they threw a few other questions in because it was a very open conversation. And so we got the flip chart out again. I said, right, through the conversation, there's been a few things. There's obviously still some things that really piss you off. So let's get those out of the way as well. And they came up with a few, but really these were the three that came up over and over again. Well, Paddy, do you know what? We're on the stand and people are trying to sell to us. The only people that actually come onto the stand are trying to sell us something. The other thing is the third day is student day. So we're in the middle of a 5-day show. Third day is student day. Everybody's just coming out with CVs, with USB sticks with their details on. And so we don't really have any conversations that we can have with them. And it's a really weird day. And they just want pens and stress balls. They want to take all the free stuff. They want a free coffee. Doesn't help us at all. Another thing that came up over and over again was we're away from our desk at a really busy time. It's a 1-week show. And so we lose some time off in terms of the weekend, but we're also there. And it's just so difficult for us to squeeze this in to what we're already doing. So we took a closer look at that. And you have to think about what contributes to the wider bottom line. There's lots of things. Obviously, there's profitable sales, but a big part of profitable sales is an efficient supply chain, particularly in a complex industry like the one they were in. Another thing that's important, particularly at the moment in so many competitive environments, is to get the right people on board and to retain them. So you do get those really talented people so that they want to work with you, and you don't have to go through huge fees with recruitment companies just to get the right people on board. And then we went through them one by one. Well, people are trying to sell to me. Let's spin that round a bit. Let's think about it a different way. One of the challenges you face as a broader organization is getting the opportunity to see suppliers and find out what's new. This was a company that was big enough to have these people in that region that could work on the stand with them. So procurement, supply chain made sure there was somebody from their organization. Actually, there were 2 people in total that worked the rota one after the other. But that doesn't have to be the case. Not everyone has the luxury of those sort of numbers of people. Smaller companies I've worked for have just had a sheet, or on their data capture iPad, they've had a note that says a little tick box for supplier. We say to the supplier, look, we're in sales, we don't deal with this, but if you could put your details in here or attach your card to this piece, we'll make sure that you get all the information you need, and they'll look at it, and if they want to come back to you, they can do that. Third day is student day. Let's spin that round and think about the kind of money that gets spent on recruiting people. Again, you might have the resources to have somebody from HR on the stand. I worked for another company where they had a little 2x2 space reception area that was set aside purely, and they made sure someone from HR was there all the time who had good knowledge of the kind of people they were trying to get on board, of some of the vacancies that they had. Again, there's coping strategies if you can't afford to do that. Have a form to fill in, have a way of dealing with it, allow people to leave their information and say, look, we don't have anyone from HR on the stand. Our vacancies are typically on our website. Take a look at that. We'd love you to do that. In the meantime, I can take your CV and make sure it gets back to our head office. Have a process for dealing with it on the stand. The final one that they mentioned, but was the biggest bugbear for them, was time away. Their end of financial year was at the end of November. Now, it made a big difference. So I started talking about that. I said, well, right, let's look forward. So 2013, when was the show? Oh, it was first week in November. Okay, and 2014? First week in November. And when was the show in 2015? It was the first week in November. All right, so let me guess when it's going to be this year. Wow. Do you know what? It's going to be the first week in November. But every year it came round and it seemed to surprise them that it was suddenly happening, even though they'd had a year to deal with it. Did it mean they could move the exhibition? Of course not. Did it mean they could move their end of year? Realistically, no. But what they could do and did do was put processes in place to make sure that they got work done ahead of time. The sales director bought into it and understood. He made sure that some of the more experienced engineers back at the office could deal with the incoming calls so that his Salesforce didn't come back to a huge amount of work. And it actually ultimately led to them streamlining their CRM system so that they could deal with the numbers more effectively during what was a busy time, so they could take advantage of this incredible opportunity. But seriously, there's a lot around everybody coming together, and it's not just that kind of group hug type mentality. There's a lot talked at the moment in marketing and in learning and development around congruence and how that builds trust. People see something. If you're saying one thing but your body language and your tone suggests something else, people don't trust you. Peter Drucker said that trust is congruence between what you say and what you do. He's a very bright man. I'm less bright, but I know that's in our DNA to identify incongruence. It's part of being a social animal, of being a herd animal. It's what's allowed us to survive. If you see something that doesn't make sense, you tend to avoid it. And so making sure that the people on your stand are saying one thing and everything that they're doing and the way they're acting backs that up is really important, whether they're in sales, supply chain, HR, any other part of the organization. I don't think often enough we appreciate just the size these opportunities give us. So many, many thousands of years ago, and I think there still is a flat earth society, but people thought the earth was flat, resting on the back of a couple of elephants that were standing on a turtle floating through the firmament. And then some smart characters back in Greece said, you know what, I think everything's orbiting something else, and they recognized some of the planets and thought they were rotating around the earth. Copernicus came along and disproved that and realized that we were actually orbiting the sun. But from my point of view, when there's a big exhibition in your town or in your country or in your region, that sector, everything around that sector, the universe according to that marketplace is revolving around that exhibition hall, and within that, your stand space. So we need to share that with the wider organization. Let them know. Not all shows have 70,000 people, but if there are 6,000 visitors, if there's 3,000, 2,000, let the wider organization know the size of the opportunity. How many seminars are there? How many exhibitors? 380 exhibitors from 85 different countries. This information is typically on a website that the organizers will have, but sometimes it's tucked away a bit, and it doesn't hurt for everyone in your, it's a one slider to say to people, we're going to this event, look at the size of the opportunity that we've got here. So what difference does it make? What do we see, particularly in terms of the salespeople we talk to? One of the real key things is that it increases understanding, and the reason it relieves the stress on you is that people take more personal responsibility for success at the show. We deal with some sectors where the selling is tough. People are out on the road for days, weeks, months on end. They're in amongst it, surviving, and they're thriving in a highly competitive marketplace. They know how to get things done. They're self-sufficient. They don't need to rely on anybody else. But once they get invited to represent you on an exhibition stand, something really weird happens to them. They just regress in some strange way that I still haven't quite worked out. And they start asking you questions. Well, what time does the show open? Where's the hotel? How far is the hotel from the venue? Can I get a taxi? Do I need to get a tram? Why don't we have better giveaways? The guys next to us have got an iPad. We've only got pens. It's no good. Should I bring a handkerchief? What if I get a runny nose? It's just insane. I was at a show the other day, just in advance of it, people on the next door stand were having a huge debate about who had ordered the right size branded shirts. But these are bright, intelligent people that are good at selling. So we need to get them back to that stage where they're taking personal responsibility for their presence and your presence at the event. The other great thing that it does is that success transcends well beyond the doors opening and closing on the show. What people tend to do is start thinking about the show well in advance because they see it as a great opportunity. They start speaking to other people in meetings and saying, oh, by the way, are you going to be at X show? Are you going to be at Confex? Are you going to be at Adipec? Are you going to be at Offshore Europe? They speak to people on the phone, they text people, they start spreading the word. It gets on the website, the fact that you're being there, not tucked away somewhere under news, but actually front center of your website is telling you on your homepage that you're going to be attending that event and having a big presence there. Email signatures start to go out informing people that you're going to be at the event, and people start to get onto social media, joining LinkedIn groups and sharing information on there. It does start spreading the word, and it gives salespeople a reason to call people and supply chain and HR people well in advance of the event and to continue the communications well afterwards. Now, I know if this isn't already in your organization, it's a big organization, it can be a bit of a challenge. Reversing this kind of culture into a huge organization is a bit like reversing a very long lorry into a very small space. But you have to and fro a little bit more. It's doable though, and the results really are incredible. I should say at this stage that this is where the SMEs have an advantage. Typically, small and medium-sized companies have a flatter structure. They have more buy-in from all the people within the organization. Typically, people have different job roles as well. They have to do different things within the organization just to make it tick. And you can see that quite often when you go to an exhibition where most of the exhibitors are small and medium-sized companies. There is quite a buzz to it, because people really value the time they're spending at the show. Everybody wants to be there, and you can absolutely tell that. I've worked with a few small and medium-sized companies recently, eConnect Cars, you've got Alistair Clark who runs it, and just to meet Alistair and his team on the stand, you can see that they get it. So they've got good leaders and they're good organisations. Matt Judkins at Made in Mind won an award at Mobile World Congress. He doesn't employ a lot of people, Matt, but what he does do is get everybody to absolutely buy into it. Nobody in his organisation minds having to leave for the show on a Sunday or getting back on a Saturday, because they're absolutely bought into what they're trying to achieve as an organisation right across the board. Sales, production, marketing, technical guys, they all want to be part of it. So in summary, people need to understand what's in it for them. Some people will do it altruistically, but most people, if they get it and they think, actually, this event could really make a difference to what I'm doing, then they're more likely to get involved and give you the support you need. You do need to get the balance right and stay in control. What you don't want is the boardroom table with every department represented by 2 different people trying to come up with the stand design and the marketing message. We all know that a camel is just a horse designed by committee, and you need, as a marketing or an event manager, to make sure you stay in control of the process. Do keep people informed with really clear and concise information. Let people know about the success, and if there's other plans in the pipeline to develop it further, let them know that. Not in reams of updates, just clear, concise, bullet-pointed emails. If you're expecting people to represent you and support you, it's important that you give them the information to develop the skills they need. So even really experienced salespeople sometimes find the nuances and the differences on the show floor quite difficult to deal with. So make sure that people do have the tools and the skills they need to represent you. And by getting people together well in advance of the show, you can unearth any challenges that they might perceive and overcome them in the same way we did when we went over to the Middle East. In bigger organizations, you need to get it right. You can't just go banging on every department's door demanding that they're suddenly more involved in exhibitions, and you want the product there on time, and you want the people, and you want HR to be there. There needs to be some diplomacy, but as professionals, you'll get the tone of that right. One thing I would say is that if there is a real challenge in a really big organization, you might have an L&D provider, or we can help. Sometimes it's easy to get a third party to come in and have the conversation in a more dispassionate way. No axes to grind, no politics. This is best practice. Companies that do well at exhibitions and events get buy-in, and the reason they get buy-in is that all the different departments understand what's in it for them. So do feel the love from the other department. This is a metaphorical feel the love. If you run around hugging everybody in your organization, you might get, in some organization, you probably get sacked, and in others you might get arrested. But metaphorically feel the love and share the success that you've got. Certainly measure the results. FaceTime do a lot of work to help people measure results. Just feeling that the show went well is not good enough. Thinking it went okay and it was disaster-free, not good enough. Any event should deliver measurable return on investment. You should know what opportunities were raised and the value of those, the likely time for them to close. All of those things can be done, and it gives you an excellent benchmark to develop and progress even further. And once you've done that, no reason why you can't put your feet up and enjoy your success, because if everyone's involved, it will be successful. So I guess one slide to sum it up. In any organization, there's lots of parts that come together, pieces of the jigsaw. You probably work in an organization where there's more departments than this, but let's say you've got marketing, sales, production, and the people side of things all coming together. It works in the wider context, But exhibitions and events are just a microcosm of everything you're trying to achieve. It's everything condensed into a few days, into a relatively small space in terms of square meters. It's you getting out there and talking to people. And because it's a microcosm, it really should be at the heart of everything you want to do. And if you can get it right for exhibitions, typically organizations that do that find that success transcends that, and it helps them in their wider business opportunities and objectives. Thank you very much for your time, and please support FaceTime in any of their future endeavors. Thank you again for them to inviting me today. I look forward to speaking to you all soon. Thank you.